Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second season, third episode of the San Show. Today, we have a very special guest from Ireland for whom Nepal is more than just a destination, it's a second home. And since 2018, he's been a steadfast presence in the country, commentating on the thrilling cricketing events that have unfolded on Nepali soil. His voice has become a symphony of excitement and knowledge that is synonymous with Nepali cricket. Ladies and gentlemen, let me have the privilege to welcome Andrew Leonard.
Hello, guys. Well,
Namaste, Andrew.
namaste to you. Great to see you. What
Namaste,
what
Andrew.
an extraordinary introduction, Dandavad, for that, and really looking forward to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. So, without any further ado, Andrew, you've become the voice of Nepali cricket. So, can you describe the feeling when you interact with Nepali fans?
Well, look, I have to say it's unlike any other experience I have in my life. I absolutely, I'm so grateful for it. I'm so humbled by it, and I love every second of it. I've been asked a few times by many different people, what is it that has kind of created this special bond between me and Nepal fans? And I think the only answer that makes any sense for me is probably a really strong shared passion for cricket, and particularly for me, a shared passion for the developing world of cricket and the kind of the more underdog nations. And yeah, the more times I've come to Nepal, the more I've become associated with the country, and I absolutely adore it. It's literally my favorite place on the planet.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like a lot of Nepali fans, they really like you, they love you, they admire you, and, they really want to learn more about your cricketing career, your highs and lows. Can we a little bit talk on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I probably never quite made it as a cricketer, or made it to the most of my ability. And I was always a very talented young cricketer. I was a leg spinner here in Ireland, where I'm back for the first time in a long time. And I played a couple of years at Hampshire as a young kid, on their academy. I was at the same club as Shane Warne for a couple of years. That was amazing to be a part of. I was part of an Irish under-19 squad with the likes of Kevin O'Brien and Boyd Rankin and William Porterfield, and was part of the last cut of players that didn't travel to the World Cup. And then I went on to try and become a professional in England. I went to university in Wales in Cardiff at the Centre of Excellence there, and when I sort of went away from the game for a couple of years, just went traveling back in 2008 to 2011. When I came back to the sport, then I did get as high as the Irish A squad at one point in, I think that was 2011, 2012, but I never quite got capped for Ireland. And I went into a number of different roles, first coaching, then tutoring and sort of teaching coaches and being a development officer here in Ireland before becoming an administrator, firstly with Cricket Ireland and then with ICC, mainly in the sort of marketing and digital and promotional field of the game. And having done that for 6 years and added a few wrinkles to my head and lost the last pieces of hair that I had, I decided I decided to take a break. And I actually took a break just to come and play another summer of cricket before I got too old. And that was the first summer really there was any live streams of any kind, and I got asked to go and do some commentary, which I'd never even envisaged. And I guess having basically watched every ball of international cricket, that was one of my main jobs in ICC for the 3.5 years I was in Dubai, and just following cricket so closely, particularly amongst the developing nations. It seemed like a great fit, and the feedback from people who I know didn't even weren't my biggest fans seemed to be really good. So it just felt like it was meant to be. And sort of the last 18 months or so now, I've been full time on as a commentator, which I never thought I'd get to do, and I'm loving every second of it.
And we love
Yeah,
you,
even
Andrew.
everyone is
That's so
very
kind. And and the
So, Andrew, like we tried to do some research, right? But there's not a lot of information on the internet about your cricketing journey, right? So, did you come to Nepal in 2018, or did you come before that?
Yeah, that was my first trip. So someone's got to make a Wikipedia page for me. There we go. If we
Yeah,
someone
I
they
would
can
do
make
the
it all up,
same.
make it all up if they want. No,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe after this,
there you go.
maybe after this
There's a
year, everybody is
there's a
know more
job
about
a
you.
job for the Sad Show team. But no, look,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was I think 2018, yeah, spot on. So my first summer doing any commentary was 2017. Then my first international was 2018, Ireland, Afghanistan. I think Rashid Khan was the man of the match. So I was interviewing Rashid Khan from having barely done much commentary. And then it was Kevin O'Brien, who's one of my best pals. We're a month apart. He was always the captain of Railway. I was always the captain of Pembroke. Growing up, the two clubs across the road from each other. We've been great friends since we were kids. And he got signed for this Everest Premier League. And I was like, oh my God, that's in Nepal. I've always loved Nepal because I know how much they love cricket. And I remember when I was at the ICC, sorry, a slight segue, but I was looking after the digital side of things. And whenever Nepal had a game on, like at one point they crashed our website with that much, the ICC official website, they put it down because the amount of traffic from the fans. And I was explaining this to my boss, and she was like, oh, that can't be right. We must have had a problem. And I was like, no, I'm telling you, there's millions of Nepali fans clicking on this, because this was before the live streams and it was only the live scorecard, maybe 2014, 2015. And so as soon as I heard that Kev was going to Nepal, I was like, mate, I would have loved to come. Can you speak to the owner? And Amir Akhtar is a guy who I owe a huge amount of thanks to, the Everest Premier League owner. He was looking for some foreign commentators, some overseas commentators who spoke good English to do the broadcast in English. And I guess from there, the rest is history. And it seemed to be a very immediate connection. I guess I was getting quite excited. And then the excitement was there in the crowd as well. And Paul Sterling, who's another great friend of mine, who was also with the league. One thing I've always loved to do, whatever my involvement in cricket is take a lap of the ground, whether I was playing or coaching or just watching. I always think you get a better understanding of the angles of what's happening out there, the positions fielders are in, the way bowlers are bowling. And I used to take this lap around the outfield in between my commentary stints, and I just wave at people and they'd all wave back. And Paul Sterling was joking. He was like, it's like the royal wave, Lenny. Everyone loves you here. I was like, really? Do they? I don't know. And yeah, Kevin, Paul and I just genuinely, we still talk about it now. Like I saw Paul last week commentating on the Ireland series, and he's like, oh, I've got to get back to Kathmandu. Like they loved it there. The way we were looked after, the people we met, it was a brilliant experience. And I guess from there, the rest is history.
Yeah, definitely. So, Andrew, I'm just curious, what is the first Nepali word that you learned?
Well, I think obviously namaste. But pretty soon after that, I learned Dandavad and Swagatham in terms of you're welcome. And the key word for me, though, is Tiksa, because you can say Tiksa to basically anything at any point, and it seems like people are okay with that. And they'll say Tiksa or Iktam Tiksa back or Ramrosa Godzap. And it's like, as soon as you say Tiksa, they're like, this guy's been here more than once. He's good. So I've been thinking about trying to learn more, though. I would love to try and learn some more. So I've got to find out a way to do that.
Yep. Definitely. So, Andrew, let's move on to the Asia Cup, right? So, what is your views on Asia Cup? It's a great moment for Nepal, and how do you rate Nepal's performance against Pakistan? What is your take on that?
Yeah, look, I think the first and most important thing to point out is that it is a huge achievement to get there for the first time in their history. As Paresh Lahani always reminds me, they did qualify once before Nepal, but they didn't get to play it because the competition never happened. So for the first time, they have made their official debut in the Asia Cup. And look, for the vast majority of that first innings, for the first 35 overs or so, they really showed that they belong at this level. And you and I and all Nepal fans know that they can perform to this level, even though you could hear some of the commentators being like, oh, these guys are quite good. It was like, come on, guys, you should know how good these players are. But one thing I always say about lower ranked sides taking on higher ranked opposition, particularly Associate V Test, is almost everything has to go right for the lower rank side to be really competitive or to go on to win the game. And it's just that one small moment. If Babar Azam was caught on 55, all of a sudden we've a completely different day of cricket. Pakistan are 130 for 5 with a notoriously brittle lower order. And, maybe Lamachani comes even more into the game then. So I think they did so much right for the first 35 overs. That's what filled me with such pride. And I was buzzing. I was actually playing a game of cricket that day. So I was watching the first innings in the Phoenix Cricket Club in Dublin in Ireland, and I so nearly ended up at the last minute. Star Sports asked me on the Friday, could I travel to Pakistan for the first game to commentate, and I said yes. And then just the logistics let us down. I couldn't quite get there. So look, it was very surreal for me, I'll be honest, to not be there and not be commentating. But all of that kind of surreality was replaced with such pride at how the boys played for the first 30 overs. And then sadly, with that drop catch, two outstanding innings against, you've got to remember, the number one ranked side in the world and the number one ranked batter in the world in Babar Azam, and a brilliant maiden century by Iftikhar. Look, it took the game away, and the end result obviously looked a bit worse than it actually was.
Yeah.
So, in the game, right, Andrew, it felt like Nepal kind of missed their regular good fielding, right, and missed a little bit of calmness in the batting crease, right. So we kind of needed a player, which a lot of people are saying maybe the selection of Bhim Sharki would have been better. What are your thoughts on him, and will he be selected possibly in the game against India?
Look, for me, it was a case of 12 into 11. I mean this with the greatest respect to Mausom Dakal and Pratish Chisi, etc. But there was 12 players who could have been picked for these two games, with Guy and Andrew obviously now having retired. So it was Bhim Sharki or Arif Sheikh. For me, it was that simple. They had to pick Lalit Rajbanshi. They didn't do that once in Zimbabwe, and it really was very costly. He's got to play the way he's
Yeah.
bowling, his consistency, his quality, and also Nepal's strength has always been spin. Play to your strengths.
Yeah.
You know, make
Yeah.
sure you have those three spinning options. In fact, they had four if you count Kushal Bertel's solitary over as well. But look, I think it's half a dozen of one and six of the other. Bhim Sharki obviously had a difficult qualifier in Zimbabwe. Arif Sheikh is wonderfully consistent and very good at rescuing difficult situations. The only change I personally would have made is I would have stuck with Rohit Paudel at 4. So that would have meant Arif Sheikh having to bat 3. So in that case, I can understand the argument of Bhim Sharki needing to play, but then he would have needed to play in place of Arif Sheikh, who maybe looked more comfortable than anyone out there up to the point he was dismissed, and that will be a shot certainly that he'll be disappointed with and have a bit of regret over. So look, these are very marginal things, and it's easy to focus on solely them. I really don't think it would have made a gigantic difference overall. I was surprised at the order change, given that Paudel has batted at 4 for almost the entirety, well, certainly I think the entirety of his captaincy career anyway. But look, the batting effort, I wouldn't worry about a huge amount. I know that sounds strange because they were chasing 330. The more disappointing thing for me was what you raised, which was the lapses in fielding within what was a very two outstanding fielding moments with Dipendra Singh Ari, surprise, surprise, and Rohit Paudel affecting 2 sensational runouts, but then some very basic errors inside what was a very good 35, 34 overs of bowling. You know, maybe 5, 6, 7 fumbles that cost either a boundary or 2 runs, which is very unlike Nepal. And you go back to everything having to go right for the lower ranked side. They should have been better than that in the field. I was a little surprised by that.
True. Also, like looking back a little bit again, right? Nepal is in this position miraculously with our excellent run, and a lot of people praise our coach Monty Desai for turning a lot of things around, right?
Yep.
What are your views on him particularly?
Well, look, I'm going to be a little bit biased here because I knew Monty prior to either of our involvements in Nepali cricket. We did our level 3 coaching course together, which is the kind of the master or the second highest level of coaching course that I think it was the highest at that point. They've only introduced the level 4 since. All the way back in 2011, 2012. This was in Edinburgh in Scotland when I was still a coach here, coaching the Irish youth sides and women's teams and the like. And I was always struck by him as an incredible human. I'm not talking about as a technical coach here, and I'm not saying he's a bad technical coach. He's probably a very good one. He was the batting coach for the West Indies, for God's sake. But I was very struck by him as a very humble, a very kind, just a beautiful man. Um, and when I heard that he was in the mix for the Nepal job, I thought, wow, that would be cool. That would be very serendipitous. And we've had many a serendipitous moment together through the Cricket World Cup League Two run, through the ACC Men's Premier run, through Zimbabwe. He's special. He really is special. I'm going to find it hard to explain why, but he's just a kind, compassionate, decent human. And I think I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, a lot of what has held Nepali cricket back in previous years has been nonsense, really. Some politics inside the team, some politics within the board, and some stupidity over who's going to be selected, and like really silly stuff. And Monty just came in and said, right, I know broadly who my best players are, and I just want them to be happy, and I know they'll be good enough and perform. I know that sounds very simple. In the 6 to 9 months, he probably hasn't needed to do a huge amount more than that, than just add a lot of love to the group, a lot of kind of certainty to the group, and a removal of the fear of failure. And that, and some consistency with regards to selections, has allowed these boys to play to their best. And we've seen them at their best this year, but that's only the start. They can be a lot better than that. Now, there's a number of things that are off the field that need to come along to support that, facilities and enhanced domestic structures. There's a lot of other things off the field that need to help Monty Desai to support that. Particularly facilities and structures and regularity of domestic cricket. But if they can do that, this team is going to get better and better and better. And it's no surprise to me. I know it's easy to say now he's done it, but it's no surprise to me that he's had such a huge impact on the team.
So
Yeah.
true.
So yeah, as you mentioned, Monty Desai has been doing a really incredible job so far. So if you were the coach of Nepal national team, what changes we could have seen, in the first match, Nepal versus.
Oh God, I don't know. Maybe pick 7 spinners because I'm a spin bowler. No, look, I don't think there's a huge amount I would change. I do really like the young left arm wrist spinner Tul Bahadur Thap. I'd love to see him in and around the setup. I'm not saying I'd be picking him yet, but again, this comes back to the domestic cricket structures. I think he was in a Nepal T20 franchise and he played 2 games. He's a 17-year-old wrist spinner who bowls like Kuldeep Yadav and is all the talent in the world. He should be playing every game, even if he's getting smashed. He should be learning. He should be getting given those opportunities. But this comes back to structures and cricket administration setups that aren't necessarily quite where they need to be yet in Nepal. They're much better than they were 3 or 4 years ago. But if they can get more regular competitions, like the PM Cup and the Mayor's Cup are great comps, but they need a little bit more of that. Paresh Lahani's always going on to me about he wants to see the guys playing red ball cricket, but again, there's financial implications in terms of costs of putting that sort of stuff on. So look, I'm always blown away by the talent in Nepal, particularly from their spin bowlers. I don't think I would be doing anything like as good a job as Monty Desai, not even close to it. But I would always play to a side's strengths when I'm setting them up, and that would be why not be the team that bowls 40 overs of spin in an ODI when you've got really good spinners across the board? I might be looking to bowl a bit more spin, but apart from that, yeah, I don't think I'd change anything at all.
We really doubt that, but anyways.
The boys will have great fun, I'm sure. They'd love it, but I'm not sure they'd do any better.
Yeah, we would love to see you as our coach maybe in future.
I have one like a broad question.
Yep.
So we unfortunately missed out on the ICC 2023 World Cup, right? We couldn't made it through.
Yep.
ODI World Cup, but upcoming T20 World Cup, right? We have a new structure, and I kind of watched your explanation about it as well. I'm sure a lot of people have not, or maybe whoever watched this video, if you could just explain the new structure in the upcoming 2024 T20 World Cup and how the regions and everything comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I genuinely, I'm not just saying this because I do a lot of work for the ICC and I used to work for them. The new structure is outstanding. It's so good. The reason why is that it's not just increasing the teams from 16 to 20 in the T20
Mhm.
World Cup, but it's also removing that preliminary stage or that initial group phase that kind of certainly split opinion, to say the least. And now it's an open draw. So the 20 teams that go to the World Cup are all equal. Yes, they'll be seeded in terms of it. India or Pakistan or whoever's the number one at that time, England, will be the number one seed. And you're not going to have number one seed, number two seed, number three seed, number four seed, five seed all in the same group, but you go into the main competition. So you also go into an open draw where Papua New Guinea, who've qualified through one of the regions there, have a chance of playing against India for the first time, have a chance of going to play England for the first time. That can only be good for the sport. It makes it a proper World Cup. We don't have any of the weird situation where previously where there was a preliminary stage and a warm-up game between two of the big sides on the same day. It was all a bit messy before. Now it makes a lot more sense. It's not only the biggest, I think it's going to be the best tournament. And then in terms of the qualification for that, there's been a significant change. The global qualifier has been removed, which in one way is a shame because that was a great sort of pinnacle or a showpiece for the best of the associate game. Brilliant events in 2015 in Ireland and Scotland and 2019 in Dubai in particular. But what it does guarantee is dedicated places for the regions. So the way it works is 2 in Europe, 2 in Africa, 2 in Asia, and then 1 in the Americas, 1 in EAP. 2 of those events have already taken place. I was commentating on the one in Edinburgh where Scotland and Ireland got through, although Ireland had a real, tight battle against Italy to make sure they got through against them. They won by only 7 runs. And then Papua New Guinea won pretty comfortably down against the likes of Vanuatu and the Philippines in East Asia Pacific. It means that we've got Bermuda coming up the end of this month. I go there for that. I'd love to give you an exclusive and say I'm definitely in Kathmandu in Nepal for the T20 qualifier yet, but that hasn't been appointed. I'm hoping and praying. Fingers crossed that'll happen. That's for Nepal. I think it's the start of November, and then the end of
Mm-hmm.
November we get down to Africa to Windhoek in Namibia, where Zimbabwe will have to qualify through. Asia is probably the most difficult of the regions, but it's only that because the Netherlands qualified automatically in 2022 thanks to beating South Africa on the final day. If it wasn't for that, Europe would have only had 2 spots between Scotland, Ireland and Netherlands, and that would have been a bloodbath. Instead, Scotland and Ireland have joined the Netherlands there, and now it's all eyes on Asia really, which is going to be really tough. I know you might look at it and say, okay, Nepal on home soil, a format that they favour. They've just won the ACC Men's Premier, and there's 2 places instead of 1. They should qualify, but it's not going to be that simple because they haven't announced the structure yet. But I would imagine the 8 teams will be separated into 2 groups of 4, and then it will just be a semi-final. So that's a one-off game to go to a World Cup. Win that, you're into dreamland. You're off to the USA and to the West Indies. Lose it, and devastation.
Maybe we meet in the USA, Andrew.
That sounds like a deal. We can do a Sancho live. We can do it
Yeah, yeah,
on the
yeah.
pitch
Yeah,
set.
for sure. That would be great.
That
That
would
would be
be.
With
great.
Momo, right?
Mhm.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So, Andrew, I have a follow-up question on that. So, which team would you rate higher, Nepali T20 side or ODI side?
Wow, that's a really good question. I don't think we've seen enough of the T20 team underneath Monty Desai for me to give you a definitive answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think a year ago I would have said T20 by a distance. But if you look at, I think I'm correct in saying all the fixtures since Monty Desai has come in have been 50 over fixtures. So
Correct.
it's impossible to answer. But if you look at the under Dav Watmore prior, they really were developing a very good T20 side. Kushal Bertel to me is probably still a much better T20 player than he is an ODI player. You'd say Kushal Malla the same. You'd probably say the likes of Avanesh Bahara. You'd imagine he'll come back into the squad at a minimum. We'll stock up the
Mm-hmm.
bowling. Be amazing to see how Gulshan Jah goes in T20I cricket, given we've really only seen him in ODI cricket. If anything, maybe the T20 format, but it's very difficult to say. And I think the big challenge in that Asia region is that so many of those teams will have had such a focus on T20 cricket, whereas Nepal is
Mhm.
going to be coming off a heavy diet of ODI cricket. And that's something Ireland have had massive battles with, trying to juggle the 3 formats. So for Nepal, juggling the 2, going back to the shortest format, I know the fans are all going to be thinking, oh, well, we're on home soil, we're going to cruise through this. I'm a little worried about that tournament. I think it's very hard to name the qualifying like even someone like a Saudi Arabia, we saw them in the ACC Men's Premier. They'll be very good at T20 cricket. We've seen Bahrain, Kuwait, Hong Kong are a very dangerous T20 eyeside. Oman, the UAE just beat New Zealand. Like this is a stacked Asian region, and we've seen heartbreak before at the Asian regional levels for women's under-19s and men's Nepali sides. It's going to be a tough tournament, and I think the biggest thing that might swing it towards Nepal will be their 12th player, that home crowd, and they will need every single one of them in the crowd to make sure that Nepal get over the line.
Yeah, definitely. So, as you mentioned earlier, this kind of platform really gives you, exposure, and you can perform maybe in better leagues next time. You said that right,
Yep.
and that's definitely true. When you gain experiences, then you learn from there, and maybe you become better that way. So we have seen, Sandeep Lamisani been playing in different big leagues and making us proud. So, what other players you think would be following his path in coming days in your eyes?
Yeah, well, look, if I can bore you with a little story for a couple of minutes, when I arrived in Zimbabwe for the Cricket World Cup qualifier commentary, um, for me, it was a big deal because it was probably the biggest scale of a tournament I'd done yet, and the caliber of commentators I was with, the Ian Bishops, the Pommy and Bangwas, the Carlos Brathwaites, you're talking some of the very best in the world there that were joining me, and I'll be honest, not many of them really knew much. Andy Flower was there, knew much about Nepali cricket, and it was quite cool. We were in Harare, we were all staying in the same place. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I basically spent the first 3 days telling them all about how brilliant Nepal was and how amazing their players were. And I think by kind of day 2 or day 3, the boys had probably been a bit like, well, this Irish guy's crazy. They can't be that good. They've got to be. They can't be any good. And then I was so happy on the first day, Kushal Bertel and Asif Sheikh put on 190 against Zimbabwe. And I remember Ian Bishop looking over at me and being like, these guys are good out there. And he became a complete convert by really the end of that partnership. He was like, where have these guys been, and weren't they getting more exposure? And so look, to go back to your question about the franchise competitions, out of that, Depender
Mm-hmm.
Singh Ari is one of the guys that I speak about
Yeah,
probably more than anyone for a couple of reasons. If you look at his raw stats, you're going, oh, why are you going on about a right arm off spinner who bats 7 or 8? You've got to, in the T20 format, you really need to take statistics out of the game a little bit. I know data drives a lot of stuff, but his impact on every game is always there because of the quality of his fielding. He's one of the, in my opinion, he's one of the top 5 fielders in the world. And I'm including Ravindra Jadeja and all these English and Australian, South African superstars in this. He's that good because of his speed to the ball, his low velocity to the ground. He's outstanding. The run out he effected then in the GT20 Canada, I don't know if you saw it off his own bowling, and the run out he took against Pakistan. I don't think any other fielder in the world even attempts those run outs, let alone executes them. So you add into that what's been an ever improving, very economical off spin bowling and some pretty handy kind of middle lower order batting. He, for me, is a no brainer pick for a franchise because
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not playing him, like how much does he add off the field in terms of your fielding drills and his energy and his positivity? And you're going to get him cheap as well, comparatively to some of the bigger names. So it was really ironic then that I'd been talking about Devendra Singh Ari over and over and over again to the guys, and Carlos Brathwaite ended up at the same franchise as him at the GT20. And as soon as I saw that run out, I had to text Carlos. And I was like, mate, I told you. And he's like, Lenny, I can't believe how good he is. He's so good. I'm training with him every day. He's such a gun fielder. So look, exposure creates opportunity. And that's what the qualifier did for Nepal. Of course, just like me as an Irish fan, as a Nepali fan, both devastated at the outcomes in terms of our overall performances in the competition and not even getting to the Super 6 stage. But it hopefully just opened a window, as this Asia Cup run will, as to how good the individual players are. And I know there's disappointment at losing to Pakistan. I get that. But I took those first 30 overs and I went, wow, this is the number 1 side in the world on home soil. And right now, like they weren't just neck and neck with them. I think Nepal were on top. And take that
yeah,
catch, and that's a different game. and you can't have that moment back, and you might not play Pakistan for another 4 years. But that's
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
the reality of associate cricket, and that's the reality of getting your chances and getting your opportunities up the grades.
Yeah, a lot of lessons, we learn from there. Maybe next time we can be better, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Andrew, last question, rapid fire. Who wins the Asia Cup?
Oh, I'm gonna go Pakistan. I think their pace trio, world class. Shaheen Shafridi, just gun. Harris Rauf, I love his attitude towards bowling. Naseem Shah, superb. Babar Azam, best batter in the world. Yeah, I'm gonna go Pakistan for me.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So,
Hmm.
I have another last question for you, Andrew. So, there are a lot of Nepali fans, they were kind of like disappointed with the first match, but some people were like, okay, this is the learning experience for them and will be better. Like some people keep their way, but some fans are really disappointed. So, what is your special message for those fans?
Yeah, look, I have to say, whenever I post anything on social media or I interact with anything, 99.9% of the comments are positive, and I love that about Nepali fans. That the passion and the positivity and the joy that they have with cricket is exceptional. Having said that, in Zimbabwe in particular, with those increased expectations came a few comments of, well, this is terrible. We've just been beaten by the West Indies, and Rohit Paudel is saying we're learning, and they were criticizing Rohit Paudel. And I was like, Rohit Paudal's right, guys. They are learning, and they've never faced Alzari Joseph before at 150 kilometers an hour. So how are they going to know how to play him yet? And I
Hmm.
thought the reaction of both Rohit Paudal and Monty Desai to what was clearly a deficiency and a problem against the short ball. They really struggled against the short ball on those pacey wickets. It wasn't, oh, well, this means we can't play at this level. They said, this is good. We've identified what we have to be able to learn to do. So that's not going to happen overnight. I, I
Yeah.
didn't quite get to the top level of cricket, but I actually played against Carlos Brathwaite quite a bit in Ireland here at 140
Hmm.
kilometers an hour, right? And you know, it's incredibly difficult. Stick 10 kilometers an hour on top of that, you're talking a completely different level. So the guys can only get better with that exposure to facing those better bowlers and better players to bowl against
Hmm.
more regularly. So my only real message would be you're going to have to be a little bit patient. This isn't
Hmm.
an 18-month journey to winning the T20 World Cup next year. It's
Yeah.
just it's not. That won't happen. If you imagine where Afghanistan were 10 years ago,
Hmm.
take that's where Nepal are now or similar to that, which is starting to do really well in associate cricket. They now need to
Hmm.
start to dominate associate cricket and win all the associate competitions that they're competing in. And then, just like Afghanistan are now, after 5, 6, 8, 10 years of playing the Test nations regularly, they are regularly competing against them. It's that simple. You can't fast track this process any quicker than that. But that's all part of the
Hmm.
excitement. That's all part of the fun. Nepal haven't beaten a Test nation yet in any format. Imagine the excitement when they do. Imagine when Ireland or the West Indies come to Kathmandu for a bilateral series. These things are all going
Yeah.
to happen. We'd love them to happen next month, and let's hope they'll happen a little bit quicker than they seem to be in some cases. But if you look at the year that Nepali cricket has had, it's clearly on the right trajectory. So stay with the team, stay with the coach, stay with the captain,
Hmm.
and stay with the process.
Sounds good, Andrew. One more last question from me.
Yeah, sure.
So, Andrew, so what is your favorite place to go in Nepal, and what is your favorite food there?
Both of these answers are pretty simple, actually. The food
Uh-huh.
is I would eat this every night if I could. The chicken kote momos, which are
Oh.
the momos that are pan fried both sides with that lovely,
Mhm.
the kind of red tomato. Sometimes it's a yellowy, actually. I don't know what the difference is. But the sauce, I love sauce in all
Yeah.
foods. So, them with either my guilty habit overseas is a Coca-Cola to keep my stomach in
Mhm.
check. So chicken kote momos with a Coca-Cola, or if I don't have work, if I don't have commentary the next day, I'll be talked into a Gorka beer, which I do. I really like a
Oh.
Gorka. Love it, the big long neck Gorka. And my favorite place, I haven't traveled much outside of the city of Kathmandu. I have been down to Barawa and Bharatpur as well, but I haven't been much. One of the years I did on my own motorbike there, so I got in and around the city, and it's kind of I went up to some of the viewing platforms and out of the city a bit, which I really enjoyed. But my favorite place, because I'm there so often, in Kathmandu is Lalitpur.
Oh,
Particularly, there's a little area over next to the zoo there. A bit of a shout out as well. Cairo's Cafe is a place I would spend every day off. I just jump it on the back of a bike, get over to Cairo's Cafe, and it's a little sort of sea of tranquility in the city. But I love the whole city, guys. Being honest, obviously Tamil is somewhere we spend a fair bit of time. But my other one is it Patan Durbar Square, which is over towards Lalitpur.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
one. And I think my second or maybe my third trip there, it was a really low budget, and they didn't even book me a hotel, so I had to book my own Airbnb, and I ended up in down an alley in a like you have to walk down an alley to get to like a secret wooden door where I thought I was
Uh-huh.
lost, and then I got in up to a tiny apartment, but it had a rooftop, and the rooftop kind of semi looked over Batan Durbar Square, and yeah, just look the city, the music, the culture, the people, they love a
Mhm.
drink. They love a night out, and the friendliness and sweetness to everyone. I love the city, but Lalipur for me, I just love Lalipur. I don't know why.
Okay. So, Andrew, as we're talking about the culture, you know, uh, Dasai. It's our main festival.
I'm
It's coming
saying,
up
yeah,
like next month.
yeah.
Dasai, right?
I've been I've been there. I think at least once, if not twice, during Dashain. Yeah.
Nice. So, here in the US, Andrew, we're organizing this event called Dasai Tihar Fest. It's we're expecting around like 10,000 people. It's to kind of give that vibe during Dasai. So special invitation to you, Andrew.
Where
It's on the October
where
14th.
where's it going to be?
So it's in Virginia near Washington D.C. Like
Wow,
30-minute drive from there, and all the Nepalese people here are excited. It's on the October 14th. It's the event is gonna be for entire day. We have like artists coming over from Nepal, and it's gonna be grand. So you should come here.
that's very very kind. I'm going to be in Bermuda till I think about the 7th or 8th. So let me see if I can magic a way to come back through America after Bermuda for the Americas qualifier.
Okay, sounds
Nice.
That'd
good,
be
That would
awesome.
Andrew.
be great.
Thank you. hmm Thank you very much for joining us here today. Thank you very much for giving us your time. I know you have a busy schedule to keep, but you came here. Thank you very much, and shout out to our sponsors, Honest Real Estate and Steam Builder, for making this happen. Thank you very much, Andrew. I have no words to describe.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Andrew.
Andrew.
Thank you guys, Dandavad.
Keep
Great to
talking.
meet you all, and keep up your love of Nepali cricket and your support around the world.
Sure.
hmm Thank you,
Thank
Andrew.
you. Thank
Cheers.
you.